If you're a boxing fan and never want to miss a fight, Boxing Showtimes is the app you need. This is a professional boxing schedule in your pocket that keeps you up to date on what's going on in the world of boxing. Download now.
Alright people, midweek report time. So, a lot to talk about in this video. A lot of things have come out over the last couple of days. This is the interesting one. Simon Jordan has taken, Frank Warren to task and has labelled Tyson Fury, this is the TalkSport article here, a crybaby over the TalkSport ban. So, for those who don't know, Shane Fury did an interview with Boxing King Media, I think it was on a Sunday, I think it was Sunday evening, where, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically, TalkSport ain't welcome at the Fury and Ngannou fight. And unbelievable when you consider that TalkSport really have been the ones, they have Adam Catterall especially, shout out to him. They have clapped back on Tyson Fury and they have tried to pull Frank Warren to task on, this fight and other things that have happened as well with Tyson Fury. I respect Adam Catterall. I like Fight Disciples. I've said it once, I'll say it again. He just wasn't able to, when he was, putting Frank Warren on blast for doing this fight, he wasn't able to just off top of his head say, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? When he was trying to say why shouldn't Fury fight, the Frank Sanchez's of the world, Warren was saying, blah, 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 they don't bring any money, not a knock on him, of course, but, that would have been the perfect time to say, well, did Tom Schwartz bring any money? Who the hell was he? But you put that on pay-per-view. So, TalkSport, basically, Fury has banned them, right? And it's crazy. Two things come to mind, right? One, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people, I think, are kind of starting to zone out a bit and not watch as many of the boxing interviews nowadays as they used to be. Boxing King Media is still doing quite well, but you see the boxing socials, the IFLs, the numbers are not as amazing as they once were. They still get good views for, say, a Tyson Fury interview, a Joshua interview, the odd Eddie Hearn interview, but they're not what they were a couple of years ago. And I think largely that's down to the fact that when we watch these interviews, we want to see the difficult questions getting asked, right? And we're not seeing them. Largely in part because if, especially with someone like Tyson Fury, you overstep the mark even a slight bit, even when you're not even necessarily overstepping the mark, you're just saying, well, hang on a minute. A good example would be True Geordie. And I always go back to that interview because it was such a revealing interview, right? True Geordie never once in that interview tried to, poke fun or really antagonize Tyson Fury. It was a very good interview. It was very respectful. He was respectful the whole way through. But this was in the run-up to the Chisora fight, and he was saying, well, you're saying legacy, but you're putting this on pay-per-view. And Fury himself was contradicting himself during the interview because all True Geordie was doing was just asking him the questions that other people weren't asking him. For True Geordie, it's fine for him because he primarily, he does cover boxing on his Pain Game channel, which is a good channel, but primarily he does a bit of everything. He does a lot of UFC, he does watch-alongs from Misfits, talks about other things in his other videos. So for him, boxing is not his bread and butter. He could stop doing boxing on Pain Game tomorrow and it wouldn't affect him in the slightest. It literally wouldn't, because he's got so many other avenues that he does. He does the true crime stuff, he does the UFC, he does obviously the watch along, the Newcastle United, stuff like that, talks about them. So he does a bit of everything. So for him to lose access to Tyson Fury via interview, that's not that bad for him, right? It's not. It really isn't. For him, he's probably not losing sleep over it. But for an IFL, a boxing social, you lose access to Fury interviews or anyone even restricted from his card and who might be on it. That, you're screwed. You're literally, that's your bread and butter. Gone, essentially. Especially if there's no other big name fighters fighting in around the same time period. You're kind of thinking, crap, I could have made however much just by attending that event, because obviously they get first access after the networks. They get a lot of access as well. And for them, they upload a Fury video. It gets, 50, 60,000 views. They upload a video of just not having a go, but say Jack Catterall, 1,000 views. It's night and day. You know what I mean? It's night and day. So they want to keep getting that access. So I understand why a lot of them don't do it. But with Tyson Fury, even with people like TalkSport, who have been absolutely, as I said, with Adam Catterall and, occasionally with Simon Jordan, but for the most part, you've got people on there like Gareth A. Davis, Spencer Oliver, who will never, ever, ever, as far as they're concerned, Fury can do no wrong, right? And, it really, it's just incredible to me. And he is a crybaby. He is. Like, actually, because why? You know, Deontay Wilder, when people were saying, you know, he was trying to get people off Showtime for time. Have we got to the stage now where if a fighter even so much has to... They're behaving like politicians. Even politicians aren't that bad. Where if they're asked a question they don't like, he's never coming back. That's a joke, right? And Fury was interviewed, I forget who it was by, but he was talking, he was Boxing King Media, and he was talking about, yeah, the haters, this, that, and the other. No, Tyson, right? That word you're using, hater, and I know his fanboys, because they're not the brightest, love to use that word all the time. But when you're contradicting yourself, when you say one thing and you do another, right, and someone points that out, that's not hate. No matter how much you want it to be, it isn't. You said one, your actions are showing otherwise to what you're saying, right? You look at the USEC when they tried to make that fight earlier this year, and all the you-know-what that went on there. People are going to point that out. People are going to say, well, it looks like you're trying to get out of this. You're moving the goalpost, you're doing this. And now you're saying there was no one available when there was loads of contenders calling you out. You know, and you point that out, oh, it's hate. But it's funny, the people who go around saying that, right, they're happy to say derogatory things about people like Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Alexander Usyk. They love making comments about Alexander Usyk. Oh, but that's okay. But someone so much as even dares point out and say, well, hang on a minute, you know, he's saying there's no one to fight, but he could have fought. You're a hater. You know, it's just, the word is so pointless with these people. You know, no one's making derogatory comments about Fury. They're literally pointing out, myself, Hatman, others have been doing, is saying, well, hang on a minute. You're saying this, but actually your actions are showing different. Hate. Can you even spell hate? I'd say the majority of Fury fanboys can't. But hey, that's the situation there. Now, in terms of the card itself, right? It's not a bad card. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this is actually the order, because I'm seeing people say that this is the order. Apparently, Bakoli Takam is going to be the first up. Well, there's obviously a preliminary fight, which is a super welterweight fight. But the actual card, apparently it's kicking off with Bakoli Takam. That's a really good fight, by the way. And it's a fight that's gone a bit under the radar. Bakoli Takam is an excellent fight. I like watching Martin Bakoli. Carlos Takam is in his 40s now, I think. But he still always comes to win. You know, and actually, they've both got wins. Bakoli's was better. It was slightly better. But both of them had a fairly comfortable win. Wouldn't tell you that on the scorecards. Don't know what those judges were watching over there. But they both fairly comfy beat Tony Yoka. It's just Bakoli was able to drop Yoka a few times. Takam wasn't. They both won the fight clearly. So I think we're looking at a very, very good fight there. Moses Atelma, who's in action then in the 6th rounder. He's in there against the guy who, I remember, he only lost once to Terrell Jamil Wood. If you don't know who he is, he's an American journeyman. He's not a particularly good heavyweight, but if he's turning you over and he stopped this guy, then you're going to have problems. You got problems. So I would expect Atelma to have a fairly easy time there. Arslanbek Makhmudov versus Junior Anthony Wright. Makhmudov we like watching. Big puncher. I expect another knockout there. Then we have Joseph Parker versus Simon Keane. That's also, there's only one 12-rounder on this card, by the way, which is, of course, Adelaide versus Fabio Wadley. But Joe Parker, Simon Keane, New Zealand meets Canada. I expect Joe Parker to win that fight. A lot of people are saying they see him in really good shape. Look, Joe Parker is very talented. He is. He's a lot of talent there. But I've expected so much out of him in the past, and he's never delivered. For me, it's like, nah, until we see it, I ain't gonna even say, like, I'm expecting Parker to win. How he does it, your guess is as good as mine. If the Parker I think could turn up, the real good Parker, he beats Simon Keane in a couple of rounds, stops him. But will he? Therein is the question. Fabio Wadley versus David Adelaide, 12-rounder for the British title. I expect fireworks in that fight. I already talked about that in my preview video, my prediction video. I've got Adelaide winning the fight by stoppage. But I think everyone who tuned into that video, and I think everyone you speak to who are looking at this card, are saying the same. We're expecting a good fight. I don't think there's anyone looking at this fight not expecting a really, really good scrap. I think it's going to be fantastic. I really do. I think both guys are going to leave it all in the ring, and we are going to see big shots going from early on. There is a beef there between the two. There's a beef there. They're young, they're inexperienced, they're on a massive stage. I'm pretty sure th're co-maining this big card. There's going to be it's going to be brilliant. I cannot envision it not being a good fight. Might not be, Gaddy Ward or anything like that, but we're still, I'd say, going to see a very, very good fight. Knockout, maybe even knockdowns. And obviously Fury and Ngannou main event. As I said, I think there is pressure on Tyson Fury to do well in this fight and to win well. I really do think that. I think that just because he's in there against someone who he should really be beaten without having to break a sweat. If the Usyk fight is as close to happen as we think in the month of December, maybe a bit later, but you don't want to risk any injuries. You don't want to risk being in there longer than you do and something strange happening. I'm not saying that him losing, I'm just saying that, heads come together. You throw a punch and, something's popped, or, things can happen. They can happen. So I expect him to go in there, get the job done nice and quick, and then hopefully we will get the Usyk fight announced immediately after. One fight that we did get announced is Marlon Tapales versus Naoya Inoue on Boxing Day in the UK. It's called St. Stephen's Day in Ireland. Nevertheless, it's going to be on in Japan, December 26th. Inoue, undisputed champion, December 2022 against Paul Butler. Inoue, in a year, undisputed super bantamweight champion. We're suspecting he does not play around. I'm excited for Inoue regardless, right? But the fact that it's on a bank holiday, it's on Boxing Day, it means that no one's going to be working. Well, the majority won't be working. I won't be working. So it means that I can do a watch along for it. It's on a Tuesday. Yeah, it's a Tuesday. It's going to be, it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. Naoya Inoue is one of my favourite fighters to watch. I think he's absolutely tremendous to watch. And, 126, Warrington and Lee Wood are going to go to 130. And I think they're right to do it because Inoue is coming to 126. He ain't going to be playing around. But I would love to see a fight between him and the winner of Lopez versus Ramirez. I think that'd be a great little fight. Either way, to be honest with you, either way. Other fights announced. Chris Billum-Smith will defend his WBO World Cruiserweight title against Mastianak on Sunday now, not Saturday, December the 10th. So December the 9th is Haney Prograis. So we've got a nice card on Sunday evening in Bournemouth. Look, I like Chris Billum-Smith. I like watching him. Mastianak was the always fringe kind of world level. He had a good scrap against Tony Bellew in 2015 for the European title. That was on the undercard of AJ Dillon White. And it was real. It wasn't low down, but it wasn't near the main event, if memory serves me correct. I think that Eubank and Spike O'Sullivan and Ishmael Barroso and Kevin Mitchell were on after that. So he went from a year being headline and pay-per-view to being, fourth from the top? Crazy. But that shows how bad that Cleverly card was. That Cleverly fight was horrible. But it was a good scrap. Bellew won it. He nearly got... Mastianak is normally durable. Bellew, this close to getting him out of there in the 12th round. Very close to getting him out in the 12th round. That was in 2015. It's now 2023, 8 years later. I won't imagine there's going to be much out of Mastianak, but Chris Billum-Smith nevertheless should get the job done. He is a good little fighter. Is Chris Billum-Smith a much improved fighter over the years? We like Chris Billum-Smith on here. In terms of what's going to happen with him and Lawrence Okoli, apparently Lawrence Okoli had the rematch clause, but the rumour mill is, and again, this is the rumour mill. I'm not saying necessarily it's true or not. It's just, we can report on rumours on here. We're all allowed to do that. The rumour mill I'm hearing is that Sky just don't want to do the rematch. Imagine that, imagine leaving Eddie Hearn, right? You're making good money, and he basically says, I'm paraphrasing here, but says, I'm going to pay you what you're worth. And then realising, okay, well, that ain't worth, I'm not going to be getting as much money as I thought. Sky are going to pay me. You do two fights that were so poor that now they're just like, nah. And that is the thing, I've said about Cody for the longest. He's got talent there, right? He does. But the way he fights is just, it's awful. Right, and I've always suspected, he was dropped a couple of times in the Billum-Smith fight. I've always suspected he fights like that because he is hiding a vulnerable chin. You don't have to, you say, well, he's never been dropped as a pro. Yeah, he's been dropped and stopped as an amateur early, and he was in his mid-20s then. Right, so it's not like he was a teenager getting stopped. He was in his early to mid-20s in the amateurs against guys like Savon when he was getting ironed out. So that normally indicates that the chin is not amazing. And I think Okoli obviously realises that because he's the memories. In Rio, he was dropped repeatedly against Savon. He survived, but he was dropped a couple of times against Savon in that fight, which was better than the last time they fought where he got ironed out in a round. I've always suspected that's the problem with Okoli. And at cruiserweight, he can get away with it. I guess you could say, win it ugly. You know, the Klitschko kind of style, where, you know, Klitschko was just grabbing hold of these guys, but he was doing it to, I'm not excusing it, it was horrible with Klitschko. He was doing it to smaller guys. Okolie is going in there, and he was doing it to smaller guys, where it was probably worse with Klitschko, truth be told, because he was doing it to smaller guys who he was just superior to regardless. He didn't need to do that. Okolie, in fights that he feels a perceived threat, it's like grab, hold, clinch, do everything, and just shut them down with your strength, which I don't like watching. No one else likes watching. The Bill and Smith fight was abysmal. It really was. It was a horrible fight to watch. In terms of other news, Joshua is back in training camp with Derek James, his trainer. Thank God he's still with Derek James and not looking for a new trainer. The article I was reading there on Sunday was from the BBC, where it said I'm switching trainers, or I've switched trainers. Obviously, he meant leaving Ben Davidson's gym. I really should have realised that. I did kind of speculate, but, you know, when you see it there, you're like, huh? Switch trainer. So, thankfully, no. Still with Derek James, still tipping away with him over there in Texas. And, you know, Derek James, for me, it's been a good work with Anthony Joshua. It's been good. Joshua's problem isn't physical. I've said it once, I'll say it again. It's mental. And, you know, I don't know what trainer you could get that's going to fix that. That's something that Joshua needs to work on, right? When it comes to all that, there's no trainer that can help you with that. It's got to be you. That's all down to you. Physically, Derek James can help you. Not the trainer can help you, but physically and technically, James can help you. Mentally, that's down to you. That's something between him and himself. As they say, me, myself, and I. That's something between those guys. Derek James can't help with that. And Deontay Wilder is also out and about, because he made a video yesterday, uploaded it to his social media account, saying it would be a disaster if we were never able to get in the ring. That was a direct message to Anthony Joshua. So Deontay Wilder is mentioning Joshua. He wants to get this fight done. Now, I talked in that video, Wilder needs to get himself active, because the longer that this fight is left, the more I would favour Anthony Joshua, for the simple reason he's being more active. His timing is a bit better. Everything. Because Wilder is getting older. He's the wrong side of 30 now. The athleticism and the speed, you will imagine, is going to wane a little bit. We still don't know fully how good he is or how recovered he is from those two Fury fights, because they were bad beatings he took in both those fights. And he is someone who relies on timing his opponent. He relies on timing everything. Timing for Wilder is crucial. And if his timing is off, which it normally is, especially if you're older, you know, there you go. And Joshua, he's been active. He may very well have a fight in the month of December. So, yeah, not ideal. Certainly not ideal for Wilder, but let's wait and see if he does announce a fight between now and then, or if he's just going to go straight into the Joshua fight. I hope we get the Joshua fight. That is a great fight. My priority is, and it will remain on this channel, Fury Usyk. Until we get that fight, nothing else will do. It looks like we are getting it. Joshua Wilder, that's a great fight in of itself. I really, really can't emphasize enough how much I want to see that fight. It's a great fight. It really is. In terms of other big names, Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia is reportedly possible for May, while Canelo versus Benavidez is being contemplated for September of next year, provided Benavidez gets through Demetrius Andrade. I expect him to. It's claimed that Munguia will join Canelo's list of opponents if he wins his planned fight with John Ryder. Haven't heard anything about John Ryder, but that's a good fight actually, Munguia versus Ryder in January. Well, I'll tell you one thing, right? Let's just talk briefly about Canelo and John Ryder. John Ryder Munguia is a good fight. Munguia was doing very good at 154, went to 160, he's done nothing. That Sarah Metto performance was good. That's it. That's literally it. Other than that, he had the most undramatic, anonymous run at 160, and now he's at 168. John Ryder is a good fighter. He is. I would expect Jaime Munguia to beat him if they fight in January. Just everything about Munguia is his energy, everything. But nevertheless, John Ryder is still formidable. Him against Canelo, you know, Munguia was rumoured to be one of the opponents for Golovkin when Canelo tested positive for clenbuterol back in 2018. I think Munguia was only 20, 21 at the time. And with hindsight, it's probably good he didn't take it at that. Well, you never know what might have happened at that stage, but I doubt he would have beaten Golovkin. He's had such an anonymous run the last few years. He had such potential as well. Would that fight? I'm sure it probably would. If you'd done it on Mexican Independence weekend, what am I saying? Of course it would sell. It's Canelo, for God's sake. And against Munguia, Mexican. So Cinco de Mayo weekend is the May one. That would definitely sell. Canelo Alvarez was actually interviewed by ESPN MX, where he said his next two fights in 2024 will both reportedly still be broadcasted by Showtime pay-per-view, despite Showtime shutting down at the end of 2023. This had previously been agreed as part of a deal with Al Heyman. Now, I do remember this. I remember when HBO bowed out of boxing in 2018, they did talk about doing once-off events, big events like Canelo fights, but they never did. Canelo ended up going with his own. What's going to happen here? Are Showtime legit? That, to be honest with you, they could do Canelo fights and make money off them, because they're the only fights I would imagine Showtime would make some good money off. But they probably would still be able to make some green off Canelo, because especially against someone like Munguia, such a big name. But Showtime, I thought that it is sad that they're bowing out. I've said that once, I'll say it again. I think Keith Thurman versus Stanionis is their last show. And I think that is on. Is that in December? Is that clashing with Haney Prograis? Just double check. I'm sure that there is some talk about that, but I'm pretty sure that's clashing with Haney Prograis, or it could be on a different day. But that's apparently Showtime's last card. I missed them. I do. I always liked Showtime. I always liked HBO. Great commentary, great everything on their ends, and it's. Yeah, like seeing the old guard like them who've been around for decades go is not nice. It's not. But if they are true to their word and they stick to do Canelo's last two, we'll get to see Showtime another 2 times, even after this year. And against Munguia, we'll do pretty well. It's a good fight. Against Benavidez, yes, Canelo Benavidez, let's get that fight. Please. Canelo Benavidez, you get 2 thumbs up from me. We want that fight. We definitely want that fight. I think that's pretty much it for the time being. Like I said, there's been some decent news over the last few days, but it's mainly been the Fury and Ngannou stuff. It's mainly been the Joshua, is he got a new trainer? What is he doing? Is he not? I think that's mainly it. I'll have because I don't know how long I've been recording for, because obviously don't time these videos. They normally just go over the time frame by default. I am seeing this here on IBO. Charlie Edwards versus Calify, he reveals, could take place in the first quarter of 2024. Calify is actually returning on November 18th. Wow. Calify was never as good as Eddie Hearn at the time was making him out to be. That's the promoter's job to make him out to be good. But when he got battered from pillar to post against Gonzalez, it really showed how far off the boil he was. I mean, he did the win a title off an easy opponent, Lewis Conception, defended against nobodies except Israel Gonzalez, and get a gift decision in that fight, meet a living legend and get absolutely wiped out. That's what Calify has done. Whereas Charlie Edwards has done zilch since he lost to Martinez. Went to Joe Gallagher, I don't know why. Didn't do anything with Joe Gallagher, I'm not surprised. And now he's doing I don't know what. So that is one of the fights that's being talked about. Jack Catterall to return in February. It's saying here possible opponents are Josh Taylor, most likely Haney, Prograis winner, possibly, yeah, or Lopez. I think he'd get absolutely annihilated by Josh Taylor. If Josh Taylor turns up, he probably wins on points. But the other two, if it's Prograis, he annihilates him. If Haney, he just outboxes him, and Lopez annihilates him. That's what I think happens in all those fights. That's my pick. I wouldn't pick Jack Catterall over any of them. The 4 names that I mentioned, I wouldn't pick him over any of them. He's a good fighter, Jack Catterall, but I wouldn't pick him over any of those. Just my opinion. Alright, that's pretty much all I can see there. So I will leave it there, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Hopefully, could we do it tomorrow? I might try and get a live in tomorrow, but I just remembered that the practice for the F1 in Mexico was on tomorrow evening, which I like tuning in for all the sessions, especially the evening ones when they're in North America. But we'll see how we go. But for now, I will leave it there. Hope you enjoyed it, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Lads and lassies, I'll talk to you. Peace.